In the rugged, windswept landscapes of rural Alberta, Canada, lives a man named Marty, a rancher through and through. Marty's life was intertwined with the land and the animals he cared for. But nothing could have prepared him for the winter of 2022. It wasn't just any winter. It was a relentless beast, a blizzard of historic proportions that descended upon his modest ranch with a ferocity that shook the very foundations of his home. As the snow piled up, turning the world outside into an endless sea of white, Marty's concern grew for his three beloved Frisian horses. There was Marvel, the magnificent giant stallion, and his two precious foals, Montana and Millie. These weren't just livestock to Marty. They were family. Frisians are known for their majestic black coats and powerful build, but even they were no match for the brutal, biting winds and the rapidly dropping temperatures. Marty had a barn, but it was old and drafty. The blizzard was tearing at it, threatening to rip it apart. He knew the barn wouldn't hold. The thought of his horses, especially the young foals, freezing to death out in the storm was unbearable. A wave of panic washed over him. What could he do? His resources were limited, and the storm was isolating him from any potential help. He was on his own. Looking around his small, rustic home, an idea sparked in his mind. It was a crazy, unconventional, almost absurd idea. But as the wind howled like a hungry wolf, crazy was his only option. He was going to bring the horses inside? Yes, inside his house. He knew his home wasn't designed for 3 horses. One of them a giant, but it was warm and it was safe. First, he had to prepare. He cleared out his living room, pushing furniture against the walls, laying down tarps and every spare blanket he could find to protect his wooden floors. It was a makeshift stable, but it would have to do. The next challenge was getting them inside. The front door was a standard size, nowhere near big enough for a stallion like Marvel. Marty's gaze fell on his mudroom, which had a wider, double-door entrance leading to a small, enclosed porch. It was still a tight squeeze, but it was his only shot. He bundled up, bracing himself against the storm, and trudged through the thigh-high snow to the paddock. The horses were huddled together, shivering, their black coats dusted with a thick layer of snow. Marvel, ever the protector, stood guard over his foals. Marty approached them slowly, his voice calm and reassuring. "Come on, boy," he cooed, patting Marvel's powerful neck. "We're going somewhere warm." Leading a horse is one thing, but convincing a giant stallion to walk through a narrow doorway into a human house during a blizzard is another. Marvel was hesitant. He sniffed at the doorway, his large eyes wide with uncertainty. He could sense the warmth from inside, but this was alien territory. Marty didn't rush him. He stood by the door, speaking softly, encouraging him step by step. He knew that if he could get Marvel inside, the foals would follow their father anywhere. Finally, with a gentle nudge and a lot of patience, Marvel cautiously took the first step. He ducked his massive head, carefully maneuvered his powerful body through the frame, and with one last push, he was in. He stood in the middle of Marty's living room, looking around with a mix of confusion and relief. The warmth of the house immediately began to melt the snow from his coat. Next came the foals. Montana and Millie, much smaller and more agile, scampered in after their father without much fuss, their little whinnies echoing in the strange new space. They immediately huddled close to Marvel, seeking comfort in his familiar presence. And just like that, Marty's small ranch house had 3 new, very large house guests. The sight was surreal. A giant black stallion and 2 foals standing in the middle of a human living room. With family photos on the wall and a television in the corner, Marty couldn't help but chuckle. It was the most unusual thing he had ever done, but seeing them safe and out of the storm, he knew he had made the right choice. For the next 3 days, as the blizzard raged outside, Marty's house was a sanctuary. He shared his home, his warmth, and even his food. He had a small stash of hay, which he brought inside for them to munch on. The foals were curious, nudging furniture with their noses and occasionally trying to nibble on a stray blanket. Marvel was a perfect gentleman, standing calmly and watching over his young with a regal air. Life inside was a strange new routine. Marty would wake up, not to an alarm clock, but to the soft sounds of horses breathing and shifting their weight on his floor. He He spent his days tending to them, making sure they had enough water and food, and cleaning up the inevitable messes. He talked to them, telling them stories about the ranch and promising them that the storm would pass soon. One evening, as he sat on his couch, watching the snow fall outside his window, Marvel walked over and rested his huge head on Marty's shoulder. It was a gesture of pure trust and gratitude. In that moment, the bond between man and animal was palpable. It wasn't just a rancher and his horses. It was a family weathering the storm together in their shared, unconventional shelter. When the blizzard finally broke and the sun peeked through the clouds, the world outside was transformed. It was a pristine, silent landscape buried under a thick blanket of snow. It was time for the horses to go back outside. Marty opened the doors and the fresh, cold air filled the house. Marvel led his foals back out into the bright, snowy world. They galloped and played in the deep snow, their spirits high after being cooped up. They were safe, they were healthy, and they were happy. Marty stood on his porch watching them. His house was a mess, it smelled like a barn, and he had a massive cleanup job ahead of him. But his heart was full. The story of Marty and his 3 house guests quickly spread through the local community and then, thanks to the internet, around the world. People were touched by his act of kindness and the incredible bond he shared with his animals. He became a local hero, a symbol of compassion and the lengths one will go to for those they love. For Marty, it was never about the attention. It was a simple act of necessity, born from love. He proved that a home isn't just 4 walls and a roof. It's a place of safety and warmth, a place you share with your family, no matter how many legs they have. His story is a powerful reminder that in the face of nature's fury, the greatest strength we have is compassion. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. We'll see you next time.